Three black SUVs creep through the moonlit hills of Sierra Vista, Arizona, their engines purring with deadly intent. Inside, Cartel enforcer Marcus Ramirez smirks as he studies a photo of 18-year-old Hannah Collins leaving her father's modest ranch. This should be simple, a quick grab, another bargaining chip in their ongoing border war. But as his men move into position around the isolated property, something feels wrong. The decorated cartel soldier's instincts, honed through years of violence, scream danger. Too late, he realizes their fatal mistake. They haven't just kidnapped any farmer's daughter. They've taken the only child of Thomas Collins, former Navy SEAL Team 6 operator and one of the deadliest warriors ever to wear the trident. In the next 72 hours, the Sinaloa cartel will learn why Navy SEALs are the most feared special operators in history. As a father unleashes 20 years of elite tactical training in a ruthless campaign to dismantle their entire operation and bring his daughter home, dawn breaks over Sierra Vista, painting the rugged desert landscape in hues of amber and gold. Thomas Collins moves through his morning routine with mechanical precision, his weathered hands checking fence lines and irrigation systems. To any observer, he appears to be just another hard-working rancher, but his eyes constantly scan the horizon with a predator's focus, noting details others would miss. Fresh tire tracks by the cattle gate, disturbed gravel on the access road, a glint of metal where there shouldn't be one. His daughter Hannah's voice carries from the ranch house. "Porch. Dad, you're doing that thing again." Thomas forces himself to relax, caught in old habits that never quite fade. "Just checking the irrigation, sweetheart." Hannah shoulders her backpack, a knowing smile on her face. At 18, she's grown up watching her father's subtle tells, the way he catalogues every detail, plans for contingencies others never imagine. Deputy Sarah Martinez's patrol car appears on the horizon, kicking up dust. She's early for her usual rounds, not a good sign. Thomas notes her tense posture as she steps out of the vehicle. "Got a minute, Tom?" Her casual tone doesn't match her alert eyes. Third family forced out this month. Cash offers way above market value, but something's not right. These buyers, nobody's ever heard of them, Thomas observes, keeping his voice neutral. Fifth, actually. Two more out by Eagle Creek. Sarah lowers her voice. Getting pressure from above to stay out of it. These buyers, they've got connections. Thomas nods, understanding the unspoken warning. The cartels don't just buy property, they buy influence, create leverage, establish control before anyone realizes what's happening. He's seen this pattern before, in another life. "Dad!" Hannah calls out. "I'm heading to Maria's to study." Thomas watches his daughter climb into her battered Jeep Cherokee, remembering why he chose this quiet life, why he left behind the world of combat operations and classified missions. But that world hasn't forgotten him. Later that morning, Thomas drives into town, observing changes that others might miss. New vehicles at the diner, expensive SUVs with subtle armoring, strangers who carry themselves like military trying too hard to look like tourists. He stops at Jackson's feed store, ostensibly for supplies. "Interesting times," Jackson says as he loads bags of feed. "Got some new customers lately, not exactly the ranching type." "Mexican businessmen, they say," Jackson continues, meeting Thomas's eyes. "Looking to invest in the area. One had scars, old wounds, professional work." Thomas understands. Cartel soldiers establishing presence in the community, building their operation before showing force. He's seen it before, dealt with it before. But that was with a team, with resources, with authorization. The burner phone in his truck chirps. A message from Mike Ghost Torres, his former SEAL team communications specialist. Snakes in the garden. Getting reports of similar patterns in 3 other border counties. Sinaloa's expanding systematically. Thomas deletes the message. Muscle memory from years of operational security. Driving home, he spots the surveillance. 2 men in a dusty pickup pretending to check fence lines, their position giving them clear views of 3 access roads. Another vehicle at the gas station monitoring traffic. Professional setup. These aren't ordinary cartel soldiers. Hannah's waiting when he returns, doing homework on the porch. "More new neighbors?" she asks, noting his expression. "Maybe." Thomas keeps his tone light. He's trained her since childhood to be aware without being obvious. "Like the Martinez place," Hannah adds. "Guy at school said his dad got an offer too, way more than the land's worth." Thomas starts to respond, but movement near the barn catches his attention. Heat, shimmer on metal, reflection from a scope. Someone's watching, assessing, gathering intelligence. He casually adjusts his position, putting himself between Hannah and the observer's line of sight. "Inside," he says quietly. "Homework in your room." "Dad?" "Now." His tone carries echoes of command authority. Hannah knows better than to argue. Inside, Thomas moves through his darkened ranch house with practiced silence. Years of tactical training evident in every step. His fingers trace the edge of an old family photo, revealing a hidden panel. Inside, tactical gear he hasn't touched in 3 years. Gear that would raise serious questions if found during a normal property search. Through the window, he watches cartel vehicles moving on the access roads, establishing checkpoints, preparing to isolate local properties. Everything according to their standard pattern, everything exactly as he expected. Time to make some calls. Thomas moves through his barn with practiced efficiency, accessing another hidden compartment. Inside, surveillance equipment that would seem out of place on a simple ranch. He methodically checks camera feeds, motion sensors, equipment that's been dormant but maintained. Old habits die hard. Hannah's footsteps on gravel. Thomas closes the panel, moves to check the tractor. His daughter appears in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Dad, there's a truck watching Maria's house." Her voice is casual, but her eyes show concern. He's trained her well. Observe, report, maintain normal routine. "Black Ford, tinted windows," Hannah adds. "Like the one that followed Mrs. Martinez last week before they sold." Thomas hands her a small device disguised as a normal phone. "Keep it with you. Any trouble, press the button 3 times, then get somewhere public." "I remember," she studies his face. "It's happening, isn't it? What you've been preparing for?" Before he can answer, dust on the horizon announces visitors. 2 SUVs approaching. From the South Access Road, Thomas recognizes the pattern. Initial contact team, probably 4 men with backup holding at distance. "Inside," he tells Hannah. "Normal routine. Homework in your room." The SUVs stop at his gate. 4 men emerge, trying to look casual in expensive clothes that don't quite hide their military bearing. Thomas notes their positions, their subtle hand signals, the way they're already setting up fields of fire. "Professional, Mr. Collins." The leader approaches, all smooth charm and practiced smile. "I represent a development group. We've been acquiring properties in the area." "Not interested in selling?" Thomas's stance is relaxed, but he's already mapped out 3 different defensive scenarios. Perhaps we could discuss terms inside. The man's smile doesn't reach his eyes. 2 of his men are slowly moving to flank position. Perhaps you could come back with actual business credentials. Thomas's voice carries just enough edge to make them hesitate. And tell your men that if they take 2 more steps toward my barn, we're going to have a problem. The leader's surprise shows for just a moment. The flanking men stop, hands instinctively moving toward concealed weapons. Mr. Collins, I don't think you understand the opportunity we're offering. The threat beneath his words is clear. The valley is changing. Better to be part of that change willingly. Movement catches Thomas's eye. Mike's signal from the tree line. He's already in position with a clear view of the situation. Always was the best at silent approach. Oh, I understand perfectly. Thomas doesn't move. But something in his tone makes the cartel men tense. Just like I understand that your backup team in the black SUV should really maintain better radio discipline. Lots of chatter about contingency plans. The leader's facade cracks slightly. They hadn't transmitted those plans in English, and communications were supposed to be secure. You have 24 hours to reconsider, he says, recovering. After that, the offer becomes significantly less generous. 24 hours, Thomas repeats calmly. That's more time than I'll need. The threat goes right past him, his confidence unshaken. They depart with the certainty of predators who've never met anything more dangerous than themselves. As their vehicles disappear in a cloud of dust, Mike emerges from cover, his movement still ghost-like, living up to his old call sign. 6. More at the Martinez place, he reports. Setting up a command post. These aren't regular cartel soldiers. Saw at least 3 with unit patches. Mexican Special Forces backgrounds. Thomas nods. Sinaloa has been recruiting, building a private army of trained operators. They're establishing a perimeter, taking key positions before showing their real strength, like Colombia. Mike remembers that operation. A cartel that thought it had all the angles covered never saw them coming. Similar template, different stakes. Thomas leads him to the barn, reveals the surveillance setup. Been maintaining basic coverage. Need to expand. Mike examines the equipment with professional appreciation. Always prepared. Rest of the team? Lisa's monitoring border activity. She'll alert us to major movement. Jackson's our eyes in. Town? Cartel's been using his store. Don't realize he can read their combat injuries like a map. Deputy Martinez is compromised. Pressure from above to stay out of cartel business, but she'll help where she can. A quiet alert from his security system. Movement at the edge of his property. Thomas checks the feed. 2 men setting up observation. Posts, professional camouflage, high-end optics. They're not waiting 24 hours, Mike observes. No, they're preparing for immediate action, making sure we can't slip away, can't call for help. Thomas's tone carries no concern, just tactical assessment. Standard procedure when they think they're dealing with civilians. Going to be surprised when they realize they won't realize anything. Thomas's voice carries the same quiet authority that once directed classified operations. Not until it's too late. We do this clean, quiet, by the book. Been a while since we wrote that book. Some lessons you don't forget. Hannah's footsteps on the stairs, her signal that someone's approaching. Thomas and Mike separate smoothly, resume working on the tractor. Deputy Martinez's patrol car appears moments later. Got reports of suspicious vehicles. Sarah's face is tight with suppressed tension. Thought I'd check. Just some real estate developers, Thomas interrupts, noting the cartel observer watching through high-powered optics. Very persistent ones. Sarah catches his meaning, plays along. Well, let me know if they get too persistent. Still got some law and order out here. After she leaves, Mike checks the surveillance feeds. 4 observation posts now. They're taking this seriously. Good. Thomas begins unpacking more equipment from hidden caches. Means they'll be focused on what they expect to see. Standard intimidation, civilian response, gradual escalation. While we set up the real operation. Exactly. Thomas is preparing for a very different kind of confrontation. They think they're hunting ranchers. Time to remind them what it feels like to be hunted. The sun sets over Sierra Vista, casting long shadows that hide Mike's team moving into position. Sinaloa is preparing for a show of force. Confident in their strength and training, they don't realize they're facing someone who wrote the book on asymmetric warfare. Someone who spent years perfecting the art of turning predators into prey. Thomas watches cartel vehicles moving on the access roads, establishing checkpoints, preparing to isolate his ranch. Everything according to their standard pattern. Everything exactly as he expected. Time to change the rules of engagement. Night settles over Sierra Vista, but Thomas Collins's ranch is far from quiet. He moves through the dark with practiced efficiency, Mike at his side, activating countermeasures that have laid dormant for years. To the cartel observers watching through night vision, they appear to be doing normal evening ranch work. They don't see the sensors being activated, the surveillance net expanding. Grid 3 is live, Mike murmurs, finishing another installation. They've got 6 more observation posts set up, getting sloppy with their concealment. They're comfortable, Thomas replies, checking a hidden monitor disguised as an old circuit breaker. Think they've got us contained. 9 vehicles on rotation, blocking all access roads. A quiet alert from his security system. Thomas adjusts the display, showing thermal imaging of 2 cartel soldiers attempting to approach the barn. Their movement is professional, but predictable. Want me to discourage them? Mike asks, moving to his concealed rifle. No, let them think they're being subtle. Hannah status? His daughter's voice comes through their encrypted comm, calm and controlled. 2 more SUVs just pulled into the Martinez place. They're setting up some kind of command center. Lots of radio traffic. Thomas had given Hannah observation duties from her upstairs window, high enough to have a good view of the valley, protected enough to keep her safe. She's proving to have her father's eye for tactical details. They're not waiting for their deadline, Mike observes. No, that was just theater. Thomas watches the thermal signatures of the approaching men. They're preparing for a night operation, want to catch us sleeping. A new vehicle approaches. Lisa Anderson's unmarked Border Patrol truck, driving past Thomas's ranch like routine patrol, but her brief flash of headlights carries a message in old unit code. Major cartel movement detected crossing from Mexico. Reinforcements coming. Thomas notes they're committing significant resources. Too many for a simple property seizure. Mike agrees. This is about more than just taking land. Thomas has been thinking the same thing. Sinaloa doesn't deploy former Special Forces troops just to intimidate ranchers. They're preparing for something bigger, using Sierra Vista as a staging ground. The cartel soldiers reach the barn, begin placing surveillance devices. Thomas watches through multiple cameras as they plant their equipment, never realizing they're being recorded from 3 different angles. Dad, Hannah's voice carries quiet urgency. That truck that's been watching Maria's house, it just pulled into the Jackson place. Jackson's lights just went out. Thomas moves to another monitor. The feed store's dark, but thermal imaging shows 4 armed men entering through the back. A warning to the community. We can reach anyone. They're establishing dominance. Alert. Deputy Martinez, Thomas orders. Code 3. Thomas is already moving, Mike falling into step beside him. Years of working together make words unnecessary. They reach their hidden equipment cache, disguised as an old root cellar. Inside, gear that would raise serious questions if found during a normal property search. Thomas selects specific items with practiced precision. Non-lethal, Mike confirms. For now, we do this right. They'll take themselves down without realizing they're involved. Jackson's feed store sits dark and quiet, but Thomas and Mike approach like shadows, using thermal imaging to track the cartel soldiers inside. The men are professional, but they're focused on intimidating a simple store owner. They aren't expecting opposition. 4 inside, Mike whispers. 2 watching the street, armed but weapons concealed. Thomas hand signals their approach. The cartel soldiers have blocked the obvious entries, but they don't know about the delivery entrance Jackson added last year on Thomas's suggestion. Inside, they hear voices. The cartel's Lieutenant Marcus Ramirez is explaining to Jackson how things will work now. The store will process certain shipments without questions, without records. Jackson's response is calm, measured, showing no fear. Thomas checks his watch. 3 minutes until Deputy Martinez arrives, creating a legitimate reason for the cartel soldiers to withdraw without suspicion. Just enough time. The operation is smooth, silent, professional. By the time Martinez's patrol car appears, the cartel soldiers find their weapons mysteriously unloaded, their radio frequencies jammed, their tactical advantage evaporated. They withdraw quickly, maintaining their cover as legitimate businessmen, never realizing what really happened. "Nice of you to check on me," Jackson tells Martinez, playing his part perfectly. "But everything's fine here, just some late-night business consultants." Later, back at the ranch, Thomas reviews surveillance footage. The cartel's response to their failed intimidation is telling. Increased patrols, tighter security, growing paranoia. They're getting nervous, Mike observes, starting to realize something's off but can't figure out what. That's how it starts. Thomas watches thermal images of cartel patrols moving with increasing agitation. Doubt creeps in. They start seeing shadows, jumping at noises, start making mistakes, like Afghanistan. Better. Thomas's smile carries echoes of countless successful operations. They've given us everything we need. Their communications protocols, their patrol patterns, their command structure. His voice carries quiet satisfaction. They think they're setting up an operation. They don't realize they're building their own trap. A new alert. More cartel vehicles arriving at the Martinez place. Lisa's intelligence was good. The reinforcements are arriving, bringing more men, more equipment, more opportunities for Thomas to exploit. Ramirez himself is coming, Mike reports, monitoring their communications. They're preparing for something big. Hannah status? His daughter's voice comes through their encrypted comm, calm and controlled. 2 more SUVs just pulled into the Martinez place. They're setting up some kind of command center, lots of radio traffic. Thomas had given Hannah observation duties from her upstairs window, high enough to have a good view of the valley, protected enough to keep her safe. She's proving to have her father's eye for tactical details. They're not waiting for their deadline, Mike observes. No, that was just theater. Thomas watches the thermal signatures of the approaching men. They're preparing for a night operation, want to catch us sleeping. A new vehicle approaches. Lisa Anderson's unmarked Border Patrol truck driving past Thomas's ranch like routine patrol, but her brief flash of headlights carries a message in old unit code. Major cartel movement detected crossing from Mexico. Reinforcements coming. Thomas notes they're committing significant resources. Too many for a simple property seizure. Mike agrees. This is about more than just taking land. Thomas has been thinking the same thing. Sinaloa doesn't deploy former Special Forces troops just to intimidate ranchers. They're preparing for something bigger, using Sierra Vista as a staging ground. The cartel soldiers reach the barn, begin placing surveillance devices. Thomas watches through multiple cameras as they plant their equipment, never realizing they're being recorded from 3 different angles. Dad, Hannah's voice carries quiet urgency. That truck that's been watching Maria's house, it just pulled into the Jackson place. Jackson's lights just went out. Thomas moves to another monitor. The feed store's dark, but thermal imaging shows 4 armed men entering through the back. A warning to the community. We can reach anyone. They're establishing dominance. Alert. Deputy Martinez, Thomas orders. Code 3. Thomas is already moving, Mike falling into step beside him. Years of working together make words unnecessary. They reach their hidden equipment cache, disguised as an old root cellar. Inside, gear that would raise serious questions if found during a normal property search. Thomas selects specific items with practiced precision. Non-lethal, Mike confirms. For now, we do this right. They'll take themselves down without realizing they're involved. Jackson's feed store sits dark and quiet, but Thomas and Mike approach like shadows, using thermal imaging to track the cartel soldiers inside. The men are professional, but they're focused on intimidating a simple store owner. They aren't expecting opposition. 4 inside, Mike whispers. 2 watching the street, armed but weapons concealed. Thomas hand signals their approach. The cartel soldiers have blocked the obvious entries, but they don't know about the delivery entrance Jackson added last year on Thomas's suggestion. Inside, they hear voices. The cartel's Lieutenant Marcus Ramirez is explaining to Jackson how things will work now. The store will process certain shipments without questions, without records. Jackson's response is calm, measured, showing no fear. Thomas checks his watch. 3 minutes until Deputy Martinez arrives, creating a legitimate reason for the cartel soldiers to withdraw without suspicion. Just enough time. The operation is smooth, silent, professional. By the time Martinez's patrol car appears, the cartel soldiers find their weapons mysteriously unloaded, their radio frequencies jammed, their tactical advantage evaporated. They withdraw quickly, maintaining their cover as legitimate businessmen, never realizing what really happened. "Nice of you to check on me," Jackson tells Martinez, playing his part perfectly. "But everything's fine here, just some late-night business consultants." Later, back at the ranch, Thomas reviews surveillance footage. The cartel's response to their failed intimidation is telling. Increased patrols, tighter security, growing paranoia. They're getting nervous, Mike observes, starting to realize something's off, but can't figure out what. That's how it starts. Thomas watches thermal images of cartel patrols moving with increasing agitation. Doubt creeps in. They start seeing shadows, jumping at noises, start making mistakes. Like Afghanistan. Better, Thomas's smile carries echoes of countless successful operations. They've given us everything we need: their communications protocols, their patrol patterns, their command structure. His voice carries quiet satisfaction. They think they're setting up an operation. They don't realize they're building their own trap. A new alert. More cartel vehicles arriving at the Martinez place. Lisa's intelligence was good. The reinforcements are arriving, bringing more men, more equipment, more opportunities for Thomas to exploit. Ramirez himself is coming, Mike reports, monitoring their communications. They're preparing for something big. The rancher, this Collins, Lieutenant Garcia reports. Something's not right. The property's too quiet, too normal. You're jumping at shadows. Ramirez dismisses his concern. He's just a farmer. Our sources checked thoroughly. No military background, no special training. Then why can't we get close to the ranch? Every team we send reports equipment failures, communication problems. It's like what? Like someone's playing with us. Ramirez's response is cut short as their backup generators suddenly fail, plunging the command post into darkness. Emergency lights activate, but the damage to their operational tempo is done. Technical failure, their engineers report after inspection. But the equipment's brand new, doesn't make sense. Thomas and Mike exchanged knowing looks. The generator's fuel had been subtly contaminated days ago when Sinaloa first occupied the Martinez place. A delayed action catalyst, virtually untraceable. They're getting sloppy, Mike notes, as cartel soldiers rush to restore power. Making mistakes. Fear does that, Thomas replies. They know something's wrong but can't identify the threat. Makes them overreact, expose weaknesses. Hannah's voice crackles through their comms. Dad, they're moving their special team, the ones in the unmarked vans. Thomas shifts his surveillance. A group of elite operators is deploying from the command post, Sinaloa's best tactical unit. Their movement is precise, professional, but reveals vital information about their capabilities and training. Former Mexican counterterrorism unit, Mike identifies them. See their formation, classic urban warfare approach. They're preparing for direct action, Thomas analyzes. But they're still thinking conventionally. Military targets, military responses. Through their compromised communications, they hear Ramirez ordering an acceleration of their timeline. The communication problems, the equipment failures. He's interpreting them as signs that someone's preparing to move against him. Sweep every inch of this valley, he commands. I want to know about any unusual activity, any suspicious movements. His soldiers deploy in force, conducting thorough searches of the area. They're professional, methodical, and completely missing the real threats. Their thermal gear doesn't detect Thomas's sensor network, disguised as ordinary ranch equipment. Their communications sweeps don't find his monitoring devices, hidden in plain sight. They're looking for an army, Thomas observes, never realizing they're being dismantled by shadows. A cartel patrol approaches their position. Thomas and Mike fade into the darkness, their movement so natural that the thermal imaging doesn't register anything unusual. The patrol passes within feet of them, seeing nothing but empty ranch land. Back at the ranch, Thomas reviews the data they've gathered. Every cartel response has revealed more of their structure, their capabilities, their weaknesses. Ramirez's arrival has pushed them to expose their full operational pattern. They'll move soon, Mike predicts. Ramirez is not known for patience. Good, Thomas's tone suggests this is exactly what he wants. Let them come in force, let them commit everything. Like Kandahar. Better, Thomas activates another set of countermeasures. In Kandahar, we had to fight them directly. Here, they'll defeat themselves. Hannah appears with more intelligence. The cartel's roadblocks are getting aggressive, their patrols more frequent. They're tightening their grip on the valley, never realizing they're squeezing a trap that's about to close on them. They're scared, Hannah observes, showing her father's insight. All that equipment, all those men, but they're jumping at shadows. Fear is a weapon, Thomas explains, more effective than bullets when used correctly. They came expecting to intimidate ranchers. Instead, they're the ones feeling intimidated. A new alert catches their attention. Ramirez's elite team is deploying specialized equipment, thermal drones, signal detection gear, advanced surveillance systems. They're bringing out their best toys, Mike notes. Perfect. Thomas's smile carries echoes of countless successful operations, everything proceeding exactly as planned. The sun begins to rise over Sierra Vista. Sinaloa's forces are fully deployed, their best equipment activated, their elite operators in position. They think they're preparing for their final push to control the valley. They don't realize they've already lost. Every piece of equipment they've activated, every position they've taken, every response they've made, all of it carefully orchestrated by someone who spent years perfecting the art of turning strength against itself. Thomas watches their thermal signatures move through the morning light, each patrol adding another piece to their own defeat. The trap is almost ready. All that remains is for them to spring it themselves. Morning light reveals Sinaloa's full deployment around Thomas's ranch. 3 tactical teams in position, their best equipment activated, elite operators ready for action. Ramirez watches from the command post, confident in his overwhelming force. All units in position, Garcia reports, waiting for your order. Thomas observes their formation through multiple surveillance feeds. Their positioning is textbook perfect for a military operation. They've set up interlocking fields of fire, mutual support positions. They're thinking like soldiers, he tells Mike. That's their first mistake. The cartel's elite team moves. First, approaching the ranch with practiced precision. Their thermal imaging shows an empty barn, no defensive positions, no armed response. Everything looks exactly like what they expect. A simple ranch with no protection. Team 1 approaching. Target, their leader reports. No movement, no countermeasures detected. Thomas watches them advance into his carefully prepared kill zone, not with weapons or explosives, but something far more subtle. As they cross the outer perimeter, he activates his first countermeasure. Their communications die instantly, not with obvious jamming, but with subtle data corruption that makes their encrypted channels useless. Each operator suddenly finds himself isolated, their coordinated approach falling apart. Status report, Ramirez demands. No response. The elite team tries to maintain formation, but Thomas's next move throws them into confusion. Hidden speakers activate, broadcasting their own radio transmissions back at them, but delayed, distorted, creating the impression of chaos in their ranks. Multiple contacts, one operator shouts, hearing movement that isn't there. We're surrounded. Negative. Sector clear. Another responds to a transmission from 30 seconds ago. Their perfect formation dissolves as each man responds to different perceived threats. Years of training work against them. They're reacting according to protocol. But the situation doesn't fit any scenario they've trained for. What's happening? Ramirez watches his best team falling apart. Get them out of there. Thomas allows himself a small smile. Phase 1 complete. Hannah status. Local police are responding to multiple calls. his daughter reports from her observation post. Exactly like you predicted. Cartel teams have to maintain their cover, can't risk being spotted with weapons. The elite team retreats in disarray, trying to maintain their civilian appearance as patrol cars approach. They've lost not just tactical advantage, but confidence. Every man is questioning what he saw, what he heard, what went wrong. They'll regroup, Mike observes. Try something different. Of course, Thomas is already anticipating their next move. They're professionals. They'll analyze, adapt, come up with a new approach. He checks his tactical display and walk right into our next surprise. Ramirez's reaction is predictable. He orders his regular forces to establish a tight perimeter, prevent any movement in or out of the ranch. Standard containment protocol when an operation goes wrong. All units maintain visual contact, he orders, his voice tight with suppressed rage. No one approaches without direct authorization. Thomas watches his men deploy. Each position they take has been prepared days in advance. Every observation post, every tactical position, every fallback point, all of them compromised before they arrive. Look at the pattern, he tells Mike. They're positioning exactly where we want them. The cartel soldiers settle into their positions, confident in their numbers and equipment. They don't realize every spot they've chosen offers a false sense of security. Their thermal imaging doesn't show the surveillance devices hidden in everyday ranch equipment. Their motion sensors don't detect the countermeasures disguised as irrigation systems. Second team moving, Hannah reports. They're trying to flank through the east pasture. Thomas checks his displays. The second tactical team is using a different approach, slower, more cautious after seeing what happened to the elite unit. But they're still thinking like military operators, using standard tactics against what they believe is an amateur opponent. Time to introduce them to some of the ranch's special features, he decides. The pasture looks normal from above, just typical grazing land with standard irrigation equipment. But as the tactical team advances, they find the ground becoming increasingly difficult to navigate. Hidden water channels activate, subtly changing the terrain. Their footing becomes uncertain, their movements slow and awkward. Something's wrong with this field, the leader reports. Ground's not stable. They try to adjust their route, but every alternative path leads them into worse terrain. Their night vision equipment, state-of-the-art technology, works against them, showing clear paths that turn into mud pits, solid ground that shifts under their feet. Pull them back, Ramirez orders, frustration evident in his voice. Regroup and reassess. But regrouping isn't as simple as it sounds. The team finds their retreat blocked by the same terrain features that impeded their advance. They're forced to withdraw along a specific route, one that exposes them to multiple civilian witnesses. Police calls are increasing, Hannah updates. Lots of reports about suspicious activity. Cartel teams have to stay hidden, can't risk being identified. Thomas nods approval. The cartels need to maintain their legitimate cover is becoming a weapon against them. Every failed approach forces them to withdraw under civilian observation, degrading their ability to operate freely. They're getting desperate, Mike notes, as the second team finally extracts themselves. This isn't going according to any scenario they've trained for. That's the point. Thomas activates another set of countermeasures, further degrading their tactical capabilities. They're trained to fight enemies they can see, threats they can engage. Instead, they're facing ghosts, like the old days. Ramirez's frustration grows as his forces continue to encounter inexplicable difficulties. Every approach fails, every tactic proves ineffective, but there's no clear reason why. No visible opposition, no direct resistance, just a continuing series of equipment failures, communication problems, and environmental challenges that seem almost purposeful in their timing. "Sir," Garcia reports reluctantly, "the men are talking. They say this place is cursed." "Superstitious nonsense," Ramirez snaps. "This is being done by someone. Find them." But finding an enemy that doesn't appear to exist proves challenging. Every sweep comes up empty. Every scan shows nothing unusual. Yet their operation continues to degrade. They're facing an opponent who seems to be everywhere and nowhere, turning their own tactics against them without ever appearing to fight back. Thomas watches their growing confusion with professional satisfaction, everything proceeding exactly as planned. Sinaloa came expecting to overwhelm a simple rancher with military force. Instead, they're finding their strength turned into weakness. Their tactics used against them, their very professionalism becoming a vulnerability. They'll try something dramatic soon, he predicts. Something to regain control of the situation. "Good," Mike replies, understanding his strategy. "Let them commit more resources. Every failed attempt just gives us more to work with." The sun climbs higher over Sierra Vista, watching Sinaloa's forces gradually losing their confidence, their certainty, their sense of control. They don't realize they're experiencing exactly what Thomas has planned, the systematic destruction of their operational capability, achieved without firing a single shot. The trap continues to close, one carefully prepared step at a time. Ramirez slams his fist on the command center table, rattling tactical displays and communication equipment. 2 failed approaches have cost him time and credibility. His elite operators look shaken, their confidence eroded by encounters they can't explain. "No more games," he snarls. "I want overwhelming force, every team, full tactical gear. I don't care about maintaining cover anymore." Thomas monitors his orders through compromised communications. "Right on schedule," he murmurs. "Hannah, initiate Community Protocol 3. His daughter's voice comes through secure channels, calm and focused. "Already done. Jackson spreading the word. Everyone staying inside, documenting everything." Around the valley, civilians quietly activate phones and cameras, recording as Sinaloa drops all pretense of being legitimate businessmen. Tactical teams emerge from their vehicles in full combat gear, no longer trying to hide their true nature. They're mounting a major operation, Mike reports from his observation post. 3 strike teams, heavy weapons, advanced tactical equipment. These aren't cartel thugs. They're running this like a military assault. Thomas watches their deployment through multiple feeds. Their movement is precise, professional, exactly what you'd expect from former Special Forces operators. They're setting up textbook perfect assault positions, establishing support by fire, preparing for a coordinated attack. 4 sniper teams in position, Hannah updates. They're using the Jackson store and the old water tower. Got perfect coverage of all approaches, except the ones they don't know about, Thomas replies. He activates another set of systems hidden throughout his property. Time to show them why tactical perfection can be a weakness. The cartel's first sign of trouble comes from their communications. Their encrypted tactical net suddenly fills with ghost signals, fragments of their own transmissions, delayed and distorted, creating confusion in their carefully coordinated assault plan. "Multiple contacts," a sniper team reports, responding to movements that aren't there. "Negative, sector clear. another team contradicts, their tactical coordination beginning to fray. Ramirez watches in growing frustration as his perfect assault formation starts to break down. His men are reporting phantom contacts, equipment malfunctions, inexplicable environmental conditions that weren't there moments ago. "Press the attack," he orders. "Don't let them play mind games." The strike teams advance, trying to maintain formation despite the growing chaos in their communications. They reach Thomas's outer perimeter, where more surprises await. Their thermal imaging systems, top-of-the-line military gear, suddenly show multiple heat signatures appearing and disappearing. Motion sensors detect movement in impossible patterns. Every piece of advanced technology they're relying on begins feeding them contradictory information. They've got some kind of countermeasures, Garcia reports. Military-grade stuff. "Impossible," Ramirez snaps. "Our intel is solid. He's just a rancher." Thomas allows himself a small smile as he watches their formation deteriorate. Every countermeasure he's activated is designed not just to disrupt their attack, but to make them doubt their own capabilities. Strike Team 2, heavy resistance. A team leader shouts, responding to threats that exist only in their compromised tactical systems. "Negative, no targets," another team contradicts. "Something's wrong with our equipment." The assault bogs down as each team encounters different problems. Their night vision shows clear paths that turn into impossible terrain. Their motion sensors detect threats that vanish when engaged. Every piece of tactical advantage they thought they had becomes a source of confusion. "They're starting to crack," Mike observes. "Look at their formation, breaking down into individual responses instead of coordinated movement." Thomas nods. "Fear does that, especially to trained operators. They trust their equipment, trust their tactical systems. When those start lying to them, a cartel soldier fires at a phantom contact, the sound echoing across the valley. It's the first shot fired, and it triggers exactly the response Thomas has prepared for. Police sirens wail in the distance. Multiple civilians report gunfire. The cartel teams, suddenly aware of how exposed they are, begin a hasty withdrawal to avoid being caught in full tactical gear. "All units fall back," Ramirez orders, his voice tight with suppressed rage. "Maintain cover protocols." But falling back isn't simple. Every retreat route they planned is somehow compromised. They're forced to withdraw under civilian observation, their military nature exposed for everyone to see. "Got it all on video," Hannah reports. "Every team, every piece of equipment. Sheriff's department is getting flooded with calls." Thomas watches the cartel forces withdraw in disarray. Their perfect military operation has fallen apart without a single shot fired in response. But more importantly, they've exposed themselves, given up the cover of legitimacy they needed to operate freely. "Phase 1 complete," he tells Mike. "They've shown their true nature. Now the real operation begins." Ramirez paces in his command center, trying to understand what went wrong. His best teams, his most advanced equipment, his perfect tactical plan, all defeated by an enemy he can't even see. "Sir," Garcia approaches cautiously, "the men are talking. This isn't right. We're trained for this kind of operation, but it feels like..." "Like what?" "Like we're the ones being hunted." Thomas reviews the data they've gathered. Every move the cartel made revealed more of their capabilities, their procedures, their weaknesses. Their show of force has given him exactly what he needed, proof of their true nature and clear documentation of their military-style operation. They'll try something bigger next, Mike predicts. Ramirez can't afford to look weak. Good. Thomas's voice carries the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly how events will unfold. Let him commit everything. The harder he pushes, the more completely he falls. The sun stands high over Sierra Vista, watching Sinaloa's forces retreat in confusion, their military precision shattered, their confidence eroded. They came expecting to overwhelm a simple rancher with superior force and training. Instead, they're learning a lesson that Thomas spent years teaching to organizations just like theirs. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one you never see coming. The trap continues to tighten, one carefully orchestrated step at a time. Midday heat shimmers over Sierra Vista as Ramirez's frustration reaches its breaking point. His forces have retreated, his cover is blown, and his superiors are demanding explanations. Something has to change. "I want every piece of equipment we have," he orders. "Heavy weapons, surveillance drones, everything, no more hiding. We take the ranch by force." Thomas monitors his commands through their compromised communications. "They're getting desperate," he tells Mike. "Time to push them harder." "Strike teams are repositioning," Hannah reports through their secure channel. "Moving heavy equipment through town. They're not even trying to hide anymore." Thomas checks his tactical displays. Sinaloa is indeed deploying everything they have. Armored SUVs with mounted weapons, military-grade drones, even portable radar systems. They're preparing for all-out warfare. "Interesting choices," he observes. "They're thinking bigger is better. Another mistake." The cartel's new deployment is impressive, a show of force meant to intimidate. But to Thomas's experienced eye, it reveals critical weaknesses. Their heavy equipment requires fuel. Their advanced systems need power. Their communications depend on coordination. "Hannah, initiate sequence Delta," he commands. "Just like we practiced." Her fingers fly over her control panel. Across the valley, carefully prepared countermeasures activate. The cartel's fuel supplies begin experiencing mysterious problems. Contamination that their quality checks somehow missed. Power systems develop inexplicable faults. Communication equipment suffers random failures. "What's happening?" Ramirez demands as reports flood in. "Fix it." But fixing it isn't simple. Every problem they solve leads to two more. Equipment that worked perfectly hours ago suddenly malfunctions. Battle-tested systems begin giving unreliable readings. Their drones are up, Mike reports. 3 units, high-end military models. Thomas allows himself a small smile. Perfect. Hannah activates another system. The drone's control signals encounter mysterious interference. Their cameras show conflicting images. Their operators struggle with controls that respond erratically. "Lost contact with Drone 1, a cartel technician reports. 2 and 3 are showing anomalous readings. Ramirez's rage builds as his technological advantage crumbles. Find out who's doing this. They must have help. Government, military, someone. Thomas watches their mounting frustration. Every piece of equipment they deploy becomes another vulnerability to exploit. Every system they activate gives him more ways to disrupt their operation. Movement at the command post, Hannah alerts. Ramirez is mobilizing his personal security detail. Through their surveillance, they watch the cartel leader boarding an armored SUV. His protection team moves with professional precision, but there's an edge of uncertainty in their actions now. "He's coming himself," Mike observes. "Getting personally involved. Exactly what we wanted." Thomas begins implementing the next phase of his plan. He's letting emotion override tactical judgment. The cartel convoy approaches Thomas's ranch, an impressive display of force. Armored vehicles, armed guards, enough firepower to wage a small war. They expect resistance, are prepared for combat. Instead, they find Thomas calmly waiting on his porch. "Mr. Collins," Ramirez calls out as he emerges from his vehicle. "I think it's time we had a proper conversation." Thomas studies him with cold precision, noting every detail, his stance, his gestures, the way his security team positions themselves. Everything reveals information he can use. "About what?" he asks mildly. "Your equipment problems, your operational security failures, or how about your exposed tactical positions?" Ramirez's confidence falters slightly. Her casual mention of military terminology, his calm in the face, of overwhelming force. "Something's not adding up. You've been interfering with our business," he recovers. "That was a mistake, a fatal one." "Interesting choice of words." Thomas's voice carries an edge that makes his security team tense. "Fatal mistakes are my specialty. Just ask the Juarez cartel about Operation Sandstorm." "Oh wait, you can't. They never knew what hit them." The color drains from Ramirez's face. Operation Sandstorm was classified, a mission that destroyed one of the most powerful cartels in Mexico without leaving a trace. A mission that was never officially acknowledged. "Who are you?" he demands. "Someone who spent 20 years teaching organizations like yours about fatal mistakes." Thomas's smile carries no warmth. "You wanted this ranch? Congratulations. You are standing in the middle of my kill zone." As if on cue, their vehicle's engines die simultaneously. Radio communications dissolve into static. Every piece of tactical equipment they brought suddenly becomes useless. Ramirez's security team reacts instinctively, raising weapons, but there's nothing to shoot at. No visible threats, no clear targets, just the growing certainty that they've walked into something they don't understand. "Last chance," Thomas offers. "Leave the valley, forget this place exists, or find out exactly why they used to call me the Ghost." "Kill him," Ramirez orders, his composure finally breaking. But his men hesitate. Something in Thomas's stance, his absolute confidence facing overwhelming force, triggers their combat instincts. Veterans recognize when they're in a tactical disadvantage, even if they can't see the threat. "Sir," his security chief warns, "something's not right. We need to..." The rest of his words are lost as chaos erupts. Their tactical network crashes completely. Thermal imaging shows multiple contacts that vanish instantly. Motion sensors scream warnings from impossible directions. Full retreat! The security chief yells, professional instincts overriding orders. They pull back in desperate haste, abandoning their disabled vehicles, their useless equipment. Thomas watches them flee, already anticipating their next move. Ramirez's pride won't let this stand. He'll respond with everything he has, commit all his resources to crushing this unexpected resistance. Phase 2 complete, he tells his team. They'll be back with everything they have, and that's exactly what we want. Hannah's voice carries a mix of awe and pride. "Dad, that was just the beginning," he assures her. "Now they know they're fighting someone, but they still don't understand what they're fighting against. That confusion, that uncertainty, it's more powerful than any weapon." The sun begins its descent over Sierra Vista. Sinaloa's forces regroup, their confidence shattered, their tactical superiority proven hollow. They came expecting to intimidate a rancher and found themselves facing something they never trained for. An enemy who turns their own strength against them, who defeats them without seeming to fight back. The real battle is about to begin. Dusk settles over Sierra Vista as Ramirez mobilizes every asset at his disposal. Armored vehicles line the Martinez place, their engines growling in the gathering darkness. Combat teams check weapons with mechanical precision, but their movements betray underlying tension. All units prepare for full assault, Ramirez commands. I want that ranch taken, that rancher eliminated, and any resistance crushed. No witnesses, no survivors. Thomas watches their preparations through his surveillance network. 74 combatants, he counts. Heavy weapons, tactical vehicles, their entire regional force. They're not holding anything back. Perfect. Thomas's voice carries quiet satisfaction. Hannah, status of community network? Everyone's in position, his daughter reports. Jackson's coordinating with emergency services. Deputy Martinez has state police on standby. All civilians are documenting everything. The cartel forces begin their advance, moving with practiced coordination. Their front line uses armored SUVs as mobile cover, heavy weapons mounted and ready. Tactical teams leapfrog between positions, establishing interlocking fields of fire. Textbook military assault, Mike notes. They're not even pretending to be civilians anymore. That's their final mistake. Thomas activates his primary defense grid. They're fighting the last war, using tactics that worked against other cartels. Time to show them why that's dangerous. The first sign that something's wrong comes from their tactical vehicles. Engines that were running perfectly suddenly sputter and die. Electronic systems crash. Communications fail. Night vision equipment shows impossible readings. What's happening? Ramirez demands as his assault force grinds to a halt. Some kind of electronic warfare, his technical chief reports. But this is impossible. Our equipment is hardened against EMP, against any known countermeasures. Thomas allows himself a small smile. Hannah initiates sequence Epsilon. Her fingers dance across her control panel. Across the battlefield, carefully prepared systems activate. The cartel's thermal imaging shows multiple heat signatures appearing and vanishing. Motion sensors detect movement in contradictory patterns. Every piece of tactical equipment they rely on begins feeding them conflicting information. Multiple contacts, a team leader shouts. Negative, sector clear, another contradicts. We're being surrounded. The perfect military formation begins to break down as each unit responds to different perceived threats. Years of training work against them. They react according to protocol, but the situation doesn't match any scenario they've trained for. Press the attack, Ramirez orders, but his command structure is already fragmenting. Thomas watches their confusion build. Every move they make triggers another layer of his defenses. Each tactical response leads them deeper into his trap. Team 2. Heavy resistance, north sector, an operator calls. Negative, no targets visible. We're taking fire from multiple directions. But there is no fire, just the systematic destruction of their tactical cohesion. Years of military training tell them they're under attack, but they can't identify threats, can't establish targets, can't coordinate a response. Sir, Garcia reports, his voice tight with strain. We're losing tactical control. The men can't distinguish real threats from false readings. Our command network is compromised. Ramirez watches his perfect assault dissolve into chaos. His men are shooting at shadows, responding to phantom threats, their professional discipline eroding under pressure they can't understand. Fall back, he finally orders. Regroup and... His words cut off as their primary communication network crashes completely. Secondary channels fill with distorted echoes of their own transmissions, each team hearing different orders, conflicting commands, creating more confusion. They're trying to retreat, Hannah reports, monitoring their movements, but every route they planned is compromised. Thomas nods approval. They're learning the hard way. Sometimes the strongest position becomes the biggest trap. The cartel. Horses attempt to withdraw, but their retreat turns into near panic. Vehicles won't start. Equipment malfunctions. Every system they rely on works against them. Professional soldiers reduced to confusion by an enemy they can't see or fight. This is wrong, a veteran operator transmits on their emergency channel. We're trained for this. We've done operations like this before. But this is like fighting ghosts. Thomas allows his transmission to reach Ramirez. Let them understand exactly what they're facing. An opponent who knows all their tactics, all their procedures, all their responses. Sir, Garcia's voice carries barely controlled fear. We need to abort. Whatever this is, whoever he is, we're not equipped for this kind of warfare. But Ramirez's pride won't let him retreat. No, we have superior numbers, superior firepower. This is just one man, one ranch. Is it? Thomas's voice cuts through their compromised communications, cold and professional. Look around you. Every move you make is predicted. Every tactic you try fails. Every piece of equipment you trust betrays you. Still think you're fighting a simple rancher? The impact of his words is devastating. Elite operators, hardened soldiers, trained professionals, all of them realizing they're facing something beyond their experience. Last chance, he offers. Withdraw completely, leave the valley, or find out exactly why they called me the Ghost. Ramirez's response is predictable, ordering his men to press the attack. But his authority is crumbling. His operators have lost faith in their equipment, their tactics, their ability to fight an enemy they can't even see. Thomas watches their disintegration with professional satisfaction. Everything proceeding exactly as planned. Sinaloa came with overwhelming force, superior technology, perfect military tactics, and that's exactly why they're failing. The trap is almost complete. All that remains is the final phase, turning their own strength against them so completely that they destroy themselves. Night has fallen over Sierra Vista, but darkness brings no comfort to Sinaloa's forces. Their failed assault has left them scattered, confused, and increasingly divided. Ramirez paces in his command center watching his operation unravel. Sir, Garcia reports, we've lost contact with teams 3 and 4. Their last transmission mentioned equipment failures, then nothing. Thomas monitors their growing chaos through multiple surveillance feeds. Time to accelerate their collapse, he tells Mike. Hannah, activate contingency protocols. His daughter's voice carries focus, determination. All systems ready. Community network is in position. Across the valley, Thomas's carefully prepared countermeasures move into their active phase. The cartel's command post suddenly loses power, not from obvious sabotage, but from a cascade of subtle technical failures that their engineers can't explain or fix. Emergency generators, Ramirez orders, but when they activate, the power surges in unpredictable patterns, damaging sensitive equipment. We're losing tactical control, his technical chief warns. Communications, surveillance, everything's degrading. Through their failing systems, they receive scattered reports from their field units. Each team faces different problems. Vehicles that won't start, weapons that malfunction, tactical gear that gives false readings. "This is Team 6, a veteran operator transmits. "We've got multiple contacts, but thermal imaging shows impossible. Patterns. Request immediate." The transmission cuts off. When it resumes, it's playing back at them from different directions, creating confusion about which orders are current and which are echoes. "Someone's inside our command network," their communications expert realizes. "They're not just jamming us, they're playing with us." Thomas's voice cuts through their frequencies, cold and professional. "Every system you trust, every tactic you rely on, every procedure you've trained for, all of it compromised before you even arrived." The impact of his words hits hard. Elite operators start questioning their orders, doubting their equipment, losing faith in their tactical superiority. "Sir," Garcia approaches Ramirez cautiously. "The men are talking. This isn't normal cartel. Resistance. Our best operators say it feels like..." "Like what?" "Like classified military operations they encountered in special forces, the kind where entire organizations disappeared without trace." Ramirez's anger builds as his authority crumbles. "She's just one man. We have superior numbers, superior firepower." "Do we?" Thomas's voice returns, carrying echoes of countless successful operations. "Look around you, your men are scattered. Your equipment is unreliable, your tactical advantage is gone. Still think you're the ones with superiority. Through their compromised communications, they hear their teams reporting new problems. Every fallback position they prepared has been compromised. Every rally point they designated becomes a trap. Their entire tactical infrastructure is turning against them. Team 2 under attack," a unit leader transmits. "Negative, no hostiles visible," another responds. "Multiple contacts, no wait. Sensors are showing, this is impossible." Thomas watches their confusion build. Years of military training tell them they're under attack, but they can't identify threats, can't establish targets, can't coordinate. Responses. Professional soldiers reduced to panicked uncertainty by an enemy they can't fight. Hannah, status of community network. "Everyone's in position," his daughter reports. Jackson's coordinating with emergency services. Deputy Martinez has state police moving into blocking positions. All access routes are covered. The cartel's elite teams try to regroup, but every movement exposes them to civilian observation. Their attempt at military-style operation has stripped away their cover of legitimacy, leaving them vulnerable to law enforcement intervention. "Sir," Garcia's voice carries growing fear. "We're losing control of the situation. The men won't advance without reliable tactical support. Our best operators are saying this is beyond their experience." Ramirez's fury builds as his perfect operation dissolves. "Find her. Find whatever she's using to do this. Tear that ranch apart." But his men's confidence is shattered. Every attempt to approach the ranch leads to more confusion, more equipment failures, more tactical chaos. They're facing an opponent who seems to predict their every move, counter their every strategy. "Impressive operation you had here," Thomas transmits, his voice carrying deadly professional appreciation. "Good men, good equipment, solid tactical planning, everything that works against ordinary opponents. But you made one critical mistake." Through surveillance feeds, he watches their remaining teams try to maintain position while dealing with cascading equipment failures. "You thought superior firepower meant superior strength," he continues, his voice carrying the authority that once commanded classified operations. "Never realized that sometimes the strongest position becomes the biggest trap." like Panama. Mike finishes watching their tactical display. The cartel forces are now caught in an impossible situation. They can't advance without exposing themselves to civilian witnesses, can't retreat without abandoning their equipment, can't maintain position without facing more of the systematic chaos that's destroying their operational capability. Final phase is ready, Hannah reports, monitoring multiple feeds. Community network confirms all positions covered. Thomas nods approval. Everything proceeding exactly as planned. Sinaloa came with overwhelming force, superior technology, perfect military tactics, and that's exactly why they're about to lose everything. Time to show them, he decides, exactly why they called me the Ghost. The trap is ready to close. The real battle for Sierra Vista is about to end. Midnight. In Sierra Vista, Ramirez stands in his failing command center, watching his operation collapse through static-filled monitors. His elite forces are scattered, his equipment compromised, his tactical advantage evaporated. Sir, Garcia reports, his professional demeanor cracking. Team 2 just went dark. Team 5 reports complete system failure. We've lost contact with our perimeter units. Thomas observes their disintegration through his surveillance network. Hannah, start the final sequence. Mike, move to position Alpha. Her fingers move across her control panel with practiced precision. Across the valley, carefully orchestrated systems activate. The cartel's remaining tactical networks crash completely, their backup systems feeding them contradictory information. We're being boxed in, a veteran operator transmits on their emergency channel. Every route we try is compromised. It's like the whole valley is turning against us. Thomas's voice cuts through their frequencies. That's because it is. You came here thinking tactical superiority meant victory. Time to learn why that was your fatal mistake. Through their failing systems, Sinaloa's forces watch in growing horror as their carefully established positions become traps. Every fallback point they prepared has been compromised. Every rally position they designated becomes a vulnerability. Sir, their tactical chief reports, we're detecting massive data breaches. Someone's accessing everything. Our communications, our tactical plans, our entire operational database. Ramirez's face contorts with rage. Impossible! Our systems are military grade. Our encryption is exactly what I helped develop, Thomas interrupts, his voice carrying deadly professional satisfaction. Every security measure you trust, every tactical procedure you follow, every piece of equipment you rely on, all of it compromised before you even arrived. The impact of his words hits their remaining operators like a physical blow. Elite soldiers, trained for every combat scenario, suddenly realizing they're facing something beyond their experience. Who are you? Ramirez demands, his composure finally breaking. What are you? Someone who spent 20 years teaching organizations like yours about fatal mistakes. Thomas's tone carries echoes of countless successful operations. You wanted to know why they called me the Ghost. You're about to find out. Across the valley, his trap begins its final phase. Every piece of evidence Sinaloa tried to hide, their military-style operation, their illegal weapons, their terrorist tactics, suddenly starts uploading to law enforcement databases. Dad, Hannah reports, monitoring multiple feeds. State police SWAT teams are moving into position. FBI tactical units 10 minutes out. Deputy Martinez has all escape routes blocked. Sinaloa's forces try to regroup, but their military training works against them. Every defensive position they take becomes a target for civilian cameras. Every attempt to maintain tactical formation exposes them to law enforcement surveillance. "Fall back to secondary positions," Ramirez orders. But his command structure is in ruins. "Negative, all secondary positions are compromised," Garcia reports, professional calm finally deserting him. "We're getting reports of police units at every fallback point, civilian witnesses everywhere. Our cover is completely blown." Thomas watches their collapse through multiple surveillance feeds, everything proceeding exactly as planned. The cartel's attempt at military-style operation has stripped away their pretense of legitimacy, leaving them exposed to the full force of law enforcement response. "Special Forces trained you well," he transmits, his voice carrying deadly purpose. "Taught you how to fight armies, how to handle resistance, how to deal with conventional threats. But they didn't teach you the most important lesson. Through their failing tactical net, they hear their teams reporting new problems. Every escape route is blocked, every hiding place exposed, every piece of equipment they trusted now working against them. Sometimes the strongest enemy isn't the one who fights back," Thomas continues. "Sometimes it's the one who lets you defeat yourself." Ramirez watches his perfect operation dissolve into chaos. His men are trapped, his tactical advantage gone, his entire organization exposed. But he still has one card to play. "Kill him," he orders his remaining operators. "Full assault on the ranch. I don't care about witnesses anymore. End this." But his men hesitate. Professional soldiers recognize when they're in an impossible tactical position. They've lost faith in their equipment, their tactics, their ability to fight an enemy they can't even see. "Sir," Garcia warns, "the men won't advance. Whatever we're facing, this isn't just tactical superiority. This is something else." Thomas's voice returns, cold and precise. "Last chance. Surrender to local authorities or find out exactly why cartels used to whisper my name in fear. The trap is set. The final phase is ready." Sinaloa came to Sierra Vista thinking superior firepower meant inevitable victory. They're about to learn why that assumption has destroyed organizations far more powerful than theirs. The real battle for the valley is about to reach its conclusion. Ramirez stands in his command center, watching his last options disappear. Police lights flash on every horizon. His elite forces are scattered, their military training now a liability as civilian. Witnesses record their every move. "Sir," Garcia reports, "Teams 3 and 4 are surrendering to state police. Team 5 is trapped by FBI tactical units. We're getting reports of federal agencies moving in from all directions." Ramirez draws his personal weapon, a custom-made pistol that marks him as a cartel leader. "Gather our remaining operators. We hit the ranch directly. No more tactics, no more games." Thomas monitors their desperate preparations through his surveillance network. "They're coming," he tells Mike. 27 operators still combat ready. They'll make a direct assault. "Walking right into our final trap," Mike confirms from his position. "Hannah, initiate endgame sequence. Coordinate with law enforcement channels." His daughter's voice carries focus, determination. "Already done. Deputy Martinez has tactical teams in position. Jackson's network is documenting everything. No matter what happens, we've got them." The cartel's remaining forces mount up in their surviving vehicles. Their military precision is gone, replaced by desperate determination. Ramirez leads from the front, past caring about exposure or tactical vulnerability. "This ends tonight. he broadcasts on open channels. No more shadows, no more games. Face us directly. Thomas watches their approach through multiple feeds, everything proceeding exactly as planned. Their desperation has stripped away their last pretense of being legitimate businessmen, leaving them exposed as the military-style terrorist organization. They really are. "You still don't understand," he transmits, his voice carrying deadly certainty. "This was never about direct confrontation. You lost this battle the moment you tried to use military force against a civilian population." Through their compromised communications, they hear their remaining teams reporting new problems. Every route they take exposes them to more civilian witnesses. Every tactical movement provides more evidence of their true nature. 3 minutes to contact, Hannah updates. They're taking the main approach, just like you predicted. Thomas nods approval. Even in their desperation, they're following tactical protocols, using standard military procedures. And that's exactly why they're about to lose everything. "Remember Fallujah?" Mike asks, checking his position. "Better," Thomas replies. "They're not just going to lose, they're going to destroy themselves." Ramirez's convoy approaches the ranch, weapons ready, all pretense of legitimacy abandoned. They expect resistance, are prepared for direct combat. Instead, they find Thomas standing calmly on his porch, apparently alone and unprotected. "Impressive operation you had planned," Thomas calls out as they screech to a halt. "Military-grade equipment, special forces training, perfect tactical procedures, everything that works against conventional opposition. Kill him," Ramirez orders, but his men hesitate. Something in Thomas's stance, his complete lack of concern facing overwhelming force, triggers their combat instincts. "But you made one critical mistake," he continues, his voice carrying the authority that once commanded classified operations. "You thought tactical superiority meant victory. Never realized that sometimes the strongest position becomes the biggest trap." Mike finishes, watching through his scope as police lights appear on every horizon. The cartel forces find themselves caught in devastating crossfire, not of bullets, but of witnesses. Civilian cameras record from every angle. Police units move into blocking positions. Federal tactical teams deploy with practiced precision. "Sir," Garcia warns, "we're completely exposed. Every civilian in the valley is recording us. Every law enforcement agency in 3 states is converging on our position." Ramirez's face contorts with rage as he realizes the truth. They haven't just lost tactical advantage, they've lost their entire operational capability. Every piece of evidence they tried to hide has been systematically exposed. "Who are you?" he demands, raising his weapon. "What are you?" "Someone who spent 20 years teaching organizations like yours about fatal mistakes." Thomas's tone carries no emotion, just professional certainty. "You came here thinking superior firepower meant inevitable victory. Time to learn why that assumption has destroyed cartels far more powerful than yours." The trap is complete. Sinaloa's attempt at military-style operation has provided every piece of evidence law enforcement needs. Their tactical protocols have led them into a position they can't escape. Their own training has become the instrument of their destruction. "Final phase is ready," Hannah reports, monitoring multiple feeds. "All positions covered. No matter what they do now, we've got them." Thomas watches the realization spread through the cartel's remaining forces. Professional soldiers recognizing when they've been completely outmaneuvered. Elite operators understanding they're facing something beyond their experience. The real battle for Sierra Vista is about to reach its conclusion, but not in the way Sinaloa expected. They came looking for a simple tactical victory. Instead, they're about to learn why the most dangerous opponent is the one who defeats you without ever seeming to fight back. Red and blue lights paint the night sky as law enforcement units converge on Thomas's ranch. Ramirez stands with his remaining forces, their military facade crumbling, their tactical advantage evaporated. Every escape route is blocked, every fallback position compromised. Sir, Garcia reports, his professional demeanor finally breaking. We're surrounded. FBI tactical teams to the north, state police SWAT units south and east. Our remaining operators are surrendering. Ramirez watches his organization collapse through static-filled tactical displays. Years of building power, establishing control, creating a military-style force, all of it dismantled by someone he can't even fight. Still thinks superior firepower means victory. Thomas's voice carries quiet certainty. Look around you. Every move you made, every tactic you tried, every procedure you followed, all of it part of your own defeat. Through their failing communications, they hear their last teams reporting in. Elite operators, trained for every combat scenario, now facing something beyond their experience. Team 6 surrendering, a veteran commander transmits. We're compromised, exposed, no tactical options remaining. Negative, Ramirez orders. Press the attack. We still have nothing. Thomas interrupts. Your tactical network is compromised. Your military equipment exposed. Your entire operation documented by civilian witnesses. Face it, you've lost. Dad? Hannah's voice comes through their secure channel. FBI command confirms they've got everything. Complete documentation of military-style terrorist operation, their entire organizational structure exposed. Thomas watches the realization spread through Sinaloa's remaining forces. Professional soldiers recognizing when they've been completely outmaneuvered, their own training, their own tactics turned against them with devastating precision. One last chance, he offers. Surrender to federal authorities, or find out exactly why cartels used to whisper my name in fear. Ramirez's response is predictable, raising his weapon, preparing for one final desperate assault. But his men hesitate, years of combat experience telling them they're in an impossible tactical position. Sir, Garcia warns, we can't win this. Whatever we're facing, this isn't just tactical superiority, this is something else. She's just one man, Ramirez screams, his composure finally shattering. One rancher against our entire organization. No, Thomas corrects him. One tactical expert who spent 20 years learning how organizations like yours think, how you operate, how you fall. Through their compromised systems, evidence of their operation continues uploading to law enforcement databases. Every piece of military equipment, every tactical procedure, every attempt at terrorist intimidation, all of it documented and transmitted. You know what your real mistake was? Thomas continues, his voice carrying echoes of countless successful operations. Thinking tactical superiority meant invincibility, never realizing that sometimes the strongest opponent is the one who lets you defeat yourself. Mike finishes, watching through his scope as more cartel operators surrender. Ramirez makes his final move, exactly as Thomas predicted, raising his weapon, charging forward in desperate assault. His remaining loyal men follow, their training giving way to raw desperation. But Thomas's trap is complete. Every movement they make, is recorded from multiple angles. Every aggressive action provides more evidence of their true nature. Their own tactical training has become the instrument of their destruction. Hannah, execute final sequence, Thomas commands. Her fingers fly across her control panel. Across the battlefield, carefully prepared systems activate. The cartel's last tactical advantages dissolve. Their remaining equipment fails. Their final attempt at military-style operation becomes the final proof of their terrorist nature. Federal. Tactical teams moving in, Hannah reports. State police units in support positions. Complete documentation of terrorist operation transmitted to all agencies. Thomas watches Sinaloa's remaining forces face their inevitable defeat. Professional soldiers finally understanding they've been facing something beyond their experience. An opponent who turned their own strength into weakness. You know why they called me the Ghost? He asks Ramirez as federal agents move in. Because by the time organizations like yours realized what they were really fighting, it was already too late. The trap closes with devastating finality. Sinaloa came to Sierra Vista thinking superior firepower meant inevitable victory. Instead, they've provided every piece of evidence needed to dismantle their entire organization. Complete surrender, Mike confirms. Their entire command structure documented, every piece of military equipment catalogued, their whole operational network exposed. Thomas nods approval as federal agents secure the scene. Everything proceeding exactly as planned. The cartel's attempt at military-style operation has given law enforcement everything they need to destroy Sinaloa completely. Dawn breaks over Sierra Vista, revealing the full scope of Thomas's victory. Not just over Sinaloa, but over the idea that military force alone equals power. He's taught them what he spent years teaching other organizations. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one who defeats you without ever seeming to fight back. The real battle for Sierra Vista is over, and Sinaloa has learned too late why some legends are whispered in fear. Morning light reveals the full extent of Thomas's victory. FBI tactical teams secure captured cartel operators while evidence response units document the military equipment scattered across the valley. Ramirez sits in custody, his aura of invincibility shattered, watching his organization's systematic dismantling. Final count, Deputy Martinez reports to the FBI tactical commander. 63 cartel operators in custody. Complete documentation of military-style terrorist operation. Enough evidence to take down their entire regional network. Thomas observes the cleanup from his porch, Hannah at his side. The valley that Sinaloa thought they could take by force now becomes the instrument of their destruction. You okay? He asks his daughter, noting her thoughtful expression. Yeah, just processing everything. Hannah watches federal agents cataloging captured equipment. All this time watching you prepare, train me to observe. Now I understand why. Through their surveillance network, they monitor the systematic dismantling of Sinaloa's operation. Every piece of military equipment documented, every tactical position photographed, every attempt at terrorist intimidation recorded. Mr. Collins, the FBI tactical commander approaches, professional respect evident in his stance. We're going to need a statement about how a simple ranching community defended itself against criminal intimidation, Thomas suggests mildly. About how civilian witnesses documented illegal activities. About how local law enforcement coordinated a response to terrorist threats. The commander studies him carefully, recognition dawning in his eyes. Certain classified operations, never officially acknowledged, suddenly making more sense. Of course, he agrees, understanding the narrative Thomas has created. Remarkable how an entire community came together to resist criminal activity. Mike joins them. His role as a simple ranch hand maintained for official records. They never understood what they were really fighting against. No, Thomas confirms. They thought tactical superiority meant victory, never realized that sometimes the strongest defense is the one they never see coming. Hannah finishes, showing her father's strategic insight. Jackson arrives with his civilian documentation team. Every moment of Sinaloa's operation recorded, every attempt at military-style intimidation preserved as evidence. Quite a night, Jackson observes. Amazing how quickly a community can mobilize when threatened. Thomas watches federal agents leading away cartel operators who once thought themselves invincible. Elite soldiers reduced to handcuffed prisoners by an opponent they never truly saw. Sir, an FBI evidence technician calls to his commander, you need to see this. Their tactical network, their equipment, their entire command structure. It's all been systematically compromised. Someone turned their own security against them. The commander glances at Thomas, questions in his eyes that protocol prevents him from asking. Thomas maintains his role as a simple rancher, but they both know some operations never make it into official reports. They made one critical mistake, he tells him. They brought military force to a civilian community. Everything else followed from that. Through their secured channels, he and Mike monitor the wider operation, Sinaloa's entire regional network collapsing as evidence flows to law enforcement agencies. Their attempt at tactical dominance, providing every piece of proof needed for their complete destruction. Dad, Hannah calls from her observation post. State police found their backup sites, more military equipment, more documentation. Their whole organization exposed. Thomas nods approval. The cartel's decision to use military-style operation has stripped away their last pretense of legitimacy. Every piece of tactical gear, every attempt at terrorist intimidation now becomes evidence of their true nature. Remarkable strategic thinking, the FBI commander comments, watching his teams process the scene. Almost like someone with extensive tactical experience orchestrated their response. Just a community protecting itself. Thomas replies mildly. Sometimes the best defense isn't about superior firepower. Sometimes it's about letting an opponent defeat themselves. Ramirez watches from his custody transport as his organization crumbles. The tactical superiority he trusted, the military precision he relied on, all of it turned against him by someone who understood exactly how organizations like his think. You never saw it coming, did you? Thomas asks him quietly. Too focused on tactical advantage to realize you were walking into a strategic trap. Who are you? He demands one final time. What are you? Just a rancher, Thomas replies, but his smile carries echoes of countless successful operations. Someone who spent years teaching organizations like yours about fatal mistakes. The kind of mistakes that destroy cartels far more powerful than Sinaloa. The sun climbs higher over Sierra Vista, revealing a community transformed, not just by victory over Sinaloa, but by the realization that sometimes the strongest defense comes from working together, from turning an opponent's strength against them. What happens now? Hannah asks, watching federal agents continue their evidence collection. Now, Thomas surveys his ranch, his community, the valley he's helped protect. Now we go back to being exactly what we appear to be. Sometimes, the best victory is the one that looks like it never happened at all. The real battle for Sierra Vista is over. Sinaloa has learned too late why some opponents are more dangerous when you never see them coming. Late afternoon bathes Sierra Vista in golden light as federal agents complete their evidence collection. News of Sinaloa's defeat spreads through criminal networks, carrying whispered warnings about a valley that destroys cartels. Thomas reviews encrypted intelligence feeds with Mike, monitoring the wider impact of their operation. 4 other cartels already pulling back from border territories, he reports, words spreading about what happened here. They'll never know exactly what happened, Thomas notes with professional satisfaction. That's the beauty of it. Every organization will draw its own conclusions, create its own warnings. Hannah joins them, bringing updates from Jackson's civilian network. The community's coordinated resistance has become a model for other border towns, though none understand the full scope of what really occurred. The Martinez place is being returned to its original owners, Hannah reports. Other families are coming back too. The cartel's whole land grab operation is unraveling. Through their surveillance systems, they monitor federal tactical teams, dismantling Sinaloa's command center. Every piece of military equipment, every tactical document becomes evidence of their terrorist operation. Just received word from headquarters. The FBI commander approaches, his expression thoughtful. Similar operations are collapsing across 3 states. Seems Sinaloa's defeat here triggered some kind of organizational breakdown. Thomas maintains his role as a simple rancher. Amazing what can happen when a community stands together. But they both understand the deeper implications. Sinaloa's attempt at military-style operation hasn't just failed, it's provided evidence needed to dismantle their entire organization. Quite a sophisticated response, the commander observes carefully. Almost like someone with extensive tactical experience orchestrated their defeat. Someone who understood exactly how organizations like theirs think. Sometimes the best defense comes from unexpected places, Thomas replies mildly. From people who understand that superior firepower doesn't always mean superior strength. Mike monitors cartel communications through their secure channels. The story of Sinaloa's defeat grows with each telling, becoming something that will echo through criminal networks for years. They're calling it El Valle del Fantasma, he reports. The Valley of the Ghost. Say it's protected by spirits that hunt cartel operators. Thomas allows himself a small smile. Let them believe in ghosts, better than understanding the truth, that they were defeated by their own tactical doctrine, their own military procedures. Hannah watches federal agents leading away another group of captured cartel operators. Elite soldiers who once thought themselves invincible, now reduced to handcuffed prisoners by an opponent they never truly saw. Will they try again, she asks. Other cartels, I mean. Some might, Thomas acknowledges, but they'll be facing a different valley now. A community that knows how to work together, how to resist intimidation, how to turn an opponent's strength against them. Deputy Martinez approaches with more updates. State police have found Sinaloa's backup sites, their supply caches, their entire support network. The cartel's attempt at tactical dominance has exposed every piece of their operation. Never seen anything like it, Martinez admits. Whole organization just fell apart, like someone knew exactly where to push to make everything collapse. Thomas watches the cleanup continue, satisfaction hidden behind his rancher's facade. Sinaloa came thinking tactical superiority meant inevitable victory. Instead, they've provided every piece of evidence needed for their complete destruction. "You know what I don't understand?" the FBI commander muses. "Their tactical network, their security protocols, their entire command structure, all of it compromised somehow. But our tech teams can't figure out how it was done." "Sometimes the simplest explanation is best," Thomas suggests. "They brought military force to a civilian community. Everything else followed from that mistake. Through their surveillance network, they monitor the valley's recovery. Families returning to homes they were forced to abandon. Businesses reopening without fear of cartel intimidation. A community growing stronger from the experience of standing together." "Dad," Hannah says quietly, watching federal agents load captured military equipment. "All those years of training me to observe, to think strategically, you were preparing for something like this, weren't you?" Thomas studies his daughter's face, seeing the tactical insight that mirrors his own. "I was preparing you to understand that sometimes the strongest defense isn't about fighting back," he explains. "Sometimes it's about being ready, being patient, letting an opponent defeat themselves." The sun sets over Sierra Vista, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Sinaloa's attempt at tactical dominance has become a lesson that will echo through criminal organizations for years. A warning about valleys that destroy cartels, about ranchers who defeat armies, about the danger of bringing military force against opponents you don't understand. "What happens now?" Hannah asks, watching the federal teams prepare to depart. Now Thomas surveys his ranch, his community, the valley he's helped protect. "Now we go back to being exactly what we appear to be. We tend our crops, help our neighbors, maintain our readiness. Because sometimes the best victory is the one that looks like it never happened at all." Mike finishes, understanding the deeper strategy. The real battle for Sierra Vista is over, but its impact will continue. A warning to those who think tactical superiority alone equals power, who never realize that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one who defeats you without ever seeming to fight back. A week after Sinaloa's defeat, Sierra Vista shows few visible signs of the battle that occurred. Farms operate normally, businesses reopen, and life appears to return to its quiet routine. But beneath the surface, changes run deep. Thomas surveys his property through enhanced surveillance systems, watching Hannah coordinate with Jackson's civilian network. His daughter has grown into her role, showing the same tactical insight that once made him legendary. Community patrols are established, Hannah reports, reviewing security feeds. Everyone knows their roles now. No obvious patterns, just neighbors. Watching out for neighbors. Mike joins them in the barn, which has been subtly reinforced with new defensive measures. 5 more cartels have declared Sierra Vista off-limits, he notes. The story is growing. They're saying the valley itself fights back against intruders. Thomas allows himself a small smile. Let them create their own myths, better than understanding the truth. That they're facing a community that knows how to turn their tactics against them. Through their secured channels, they monitor wider developments. Sinaloa's collapse has created a power vacuum along the border, but other criminal organizations are staying clear of Sierra Vista. The story of their defeat has become a warning. FBI is closing their official investigation, Mike reports. Their report calls it unprecedented community resistance to organized crime. No mention of tactical operations or military-grade countermeasures. Perfect, Thomas nods. Sometimes the best defense is the one they never officially acknowledge. Deputy Martinez arrives with updates from law enforcement channels. State police have established new protocols for the region, inspired by Sierra Vista's civilian response network. They don't need to know about the sophisticated tactical systems behind that network. Got something interesting, Martinez mentions casually. 4 suspicious vehicles spotted near Eagle Creek yesterday. Turned around as soon as they heard they were approaching Sierra Vista. Just drove away, didn't even try anything. Thomas reviews surveillance data from their outer sensor network. The vehicles matched cartel reconnaissance patterns, but their retreat speaks volumes. The valley's reputation is becoming its own defense. Dad? Hannah calls from her monitoring station. Jackson's network picked up some chatter. Apparently there's a story going around that anyone who tries to move against Sierra Vista disappears without a trace. Reputation is a powerful weapon, Thomas observes, especially when no one knows exactly what they're afraid of. Through their enhanced surveillance systems, they track the valley's transformation. Every farm now has hidden security measures, every business part of an alert network, every resident trained to observe and report without appearing to do so. The Thompson place is installing those new irrigation systems you designed, Mike notes with professional appreciation. Whole valleys becoming one integrated defensive position, but it just looks like normal agricultural development. Thomas watches federal teams completing their final evidence collection. They're professional, thorough, dedicated, and completely unaware of the sophisticated tactical infrastructure hidden beneath the valley's peaceful surface. Mr. Collins, the FBI commander, makes one last visit. Just wanted to say, whatever really happened here, however this community managed to defeat a cartel's military-style operation, well, some things are better left out of official reports. Thomas maintains his rancher's demeanor. Sometimes, the simplest explanation is best, just neighbors looking out for neighbors. But they both understand the deeper message. Some victories are more effective when they remain unofficial, when their true nature stays hidden behind a facade of ordinary civilian response. Hannah joins them, bringing updates from their extended sensor network. Other communities are implementing their own security measures inspired by Sierra Vista's example. None understand the full scope of what they're copying, but that's exactly the point. Think they'll figure it out? Hannah asks after the commander leaves. About who you really are, what you really did? No, Thomas replies with quiet certainty. Because we're going to be exactly what we appear to be. Ranchers tending our land, neighbors helping neighbors, a community that somehow manages to stay free of cartel influence. Through their surveillance feeds, they monitor the valley's new normal. Hidden sensors disguised as agricultural equipment, communication networks masked as ordinary business operations, tactical response teams that look like nothing more than neighbors checking on neighbors. 6 more suspicious vehicles on the outer perimeter, Mike reports, running standard cartel reconnaissance pattern, but they're staying well back, just observing from a distance. Thomas nods approval. Let them watch. Let them wonder. The more mysterious our defense appears, the more effective it becomes. The sun sets over Sierra Vista, its light touching farms that now hide sophisticated security systems, communities that conceal tactical response networks, ordinary people who've learned to be extraordinary defenders. What happens when someone finally tries again? Hannah asks, monitoring their security feeds. Then they learn what Sinaloa learned, Thomas replies. That sometimes the strongest opponent is the one who defeats you without ever appearing to fight. That superior firepower means nothing against superior strategy. That some valleys are protected by more than just fences and guns. The victory in Sierra Vista isn't just about defeating one cartel. It's about creating a defense so subtle, so sophisticated, that it appears to be nothing more than ordinary community life. A protection that works best, precisely because its true nature remains hidden. The trap remains ready, invisible but effective, waiting for the next organization that makes the mistake of thinking tactical superiority alone equals power. 2 weeks after Sinaloa's defeat, representatives from neighboring communities arrive. At Sierra Vista, they've heard stories about a ranching town that defeated a cartel, but none understand the true sophistication of what occurred. Thomas observes their meeting from his barn's hidden command center. Jackson leads the discussion, explaining their community watch program while carefully omitting its tactical underpinnings. It's really quite simple, Jackson tells them. Just neighbors being observant, staying connected, watching out for each other. Nothing complicated about it. Hannah monitors their visitors through multiple surveillance feeds. 3 of them have military backgrounds, she reports to Thomas. They're trying to understand our tactical response, but can't figure out how we managed it with civilian resources. That's exactly what we want, Thomas replies. Let them see the surface organization. The real system stays hidden. Through their secure channels, they track the wider impact of their victory. Sinaloa's collapse has destabilized cartel operations across 3 states, but no one can explain exactly how a small ranching community managed to defeat their military-style operation. Eagle Creek is implementing their own neighborhood watch program, Mike reports. Using our basic template, but without understanding the tactical infrastructure behind it. Perfect cover for expanding our security network. Thomas reviews data from their extended sensor grid. Other communities are indeed copying what they can see of Sierra Vista's defense system, but none grasp its true nature. Their imitations provide excellent cover for more sophisticated measures. Deputy Martinez called. Hannah updates. 3 more cartel reconnaissance vehicles approached the county line yesterday, turned around as soon as they heard where they were heading. The valley's reputation is spreading. Through their surveillance network, they monitor the visiting community leaders touring Sierra Vista. Every security measure they see appears completely ordinary. Irrigation systems that hide motion sensors, farm equipment concealing surveillance, gear, communication networks disguised as business operations. Remarkable how ordinary everything looks, one visitor comments. Hard to believe this is the same place that defeated a cartel's military operation. Jackson maintains their cover perfectly. Sometimes the simplest solutions are best. Just people working together, staying alert, being prepared. Thomas watches through hidden cameras as Hannah conducts a basic observation training session with visiting teenagers. She's teaching them genuine surveillance skills, but carefully masked as ordinary awareness exercises. Always notice what's different, she instructs them. Changes in traffic patterns, unfamiliar vehicles, anything that doesn't fit normal routines. Not because you're looking for trouble, but because that's what good neighbors do. The real tactical training happens beneath this visible instruction. Hannah subtly evaluates each student's potential, identifying those who might be ready for more advanced preparation. "They're catching on quick," she tells Thomas later. "Not to the full system, but to the basic principles. Building a network of observers who don't even realize they're part of something bigger. Through their secure channels, they monitor law enforcement adaptation. Police departments across the region are implementing what they think is Sierra Vista's defense model. None understand they're seeing only the surface of a much more sophisticated system." State Police Tactical Bulletin, Mike reports. Checking. Encrypted feeds. They're calling it the Sierra Vista Protocol, community-based resistance to organized crime. If they only knew what really happened here, Thomas allows himself a small smile. The best tactical advantage is the one they never realize exists. Let them think they understand our methods. The real system stays invisible. The real battle for Sierra Vista ended not with gunfire, but with whispered legends. Thomas Collins watches the sunset from his porch, his daughter Hannah beside him, as their valley thrives under its invisible protection. What began as one father's mission to protect his home has become something more, a blueprint for communities standing against overwhelming force, a warning to those who mistake tactical superiority for true strength. "You created something amazing, Dad," Hannah says, monitoring the latest security feeds showing 3 more cartel reconnaissance teams turning away from their borders. Not just a defense system, but a legend. Thomas smiles, remembering the night. Sinaloa learned too late why some opponents are more dangerous when you never see them coming. The best victory is the one that looks like it never happened at all. Let them tell their stories about the valley that defeats cartels without firing a shot. The truth is better hidden in plain sight. Through their sophisticated but invisible network, they continue watching, ready but unnoticed. Their methods spread to other communities, though none understand the full scope of what they're copying. Sierra Vista stands as a warning to those who would bring military force against civilian targets. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one who lets you defeat yourself. As darkness settles over the valley, Thomas reflects on how far they've come. What started as a father protecting his daughter has transformed an entire region, creating a defense that grows stronger precisely because its true nature remains hidden. The trap stays ready, invisible but effective, waiting for anyone who makes the mistake of thinking tactical superiority alone equals power. But that day may never come. Because Sierra Vista has become something unique, a place where military force means nothing, where strength lies in appearing ordinary, and where the most effective defense is the one that seems like no defense at all. Incredible stories like this one are what our channel is all about. If you want to see more tales of justice, strategy, and standing up against overwhelming odds, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Your support means everything to us and helps us keep bringing you the kind of content you love. And here's something special. Tomorrow's episode reveals how a former Special Forces medic turned a cartel's own psychological warfare against them in a way you have to see to believe. You won't want to miss it. Just click to watch more and don't forget to subscribe. Every new subscriber helps us create more of the stories you enjoy. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.